Hello, I'm Holly Arntzen with the Artist Response Team. In August, my partner Kevin Wright and I, with the support of the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, embarked on the Fraser Reconnaissance trip. We traveled to 6 communities and met with local conservation groups who presented 11 potential riparian and in-stream restoration projects. Here are the remarkable people we met who dedicate their lives to protecting habitats and the beautiful watersheds we visited.
Terri McClymont with REAP's Recycling Environmental Action Planning Society, and I'm also the Education Coordinator for DFO's Stream to Sea program. We need to have more shade here, and we need to have more vegetation to prevent any polluted runoff and to try to get rid of the compacted soil here and to provide more nurseries for the aquatic insects, which will in turn feed the other species that thrive on here, whether it is land animals or aquatic animals, right? And also to increase bird habitat. This is a great footpath and also a biking trail, so it would be a great area to increase visibility and community support and enhancing the area just by providing some restoration here. What they've done is they've tried to put some rocks in here to stop the erosion. So we decrease the sedimentation that's flowing into the river because we do have Nechako sturgeon. We also have salmon that use the Fraser and the Nechakos as a spawning route. And so providing some estuaries and some side channels here allow the fingerlings to come in and to rest and to stock up and to feed.
The first thing we want to do is to get people to really love and appreciate this entire thing. That it's a lovely, well, as you go around, you can see that it's terrific habitats. We've got all sorts of interesting things happen, but it's been undeveloped. And what we don't have at the moment is a circular walk taking us around the whole thing. So to get people to really care about this, first of all, we're going to make sure that people come down and see what they've got. Okay, so at the moment there's just a walk heading through here, but we're going to be putting in a circular walk with a whole bunch of observation features, so people can get down and see the animals. They can see the birds, they can see the muskrat and the beaver and all the rest of it. Put towers in, overlooks, observation blinds, a whole bunch of things to turn this into a proper circular walk. In terms of an interpretive area, we've got this wonderful agreement with Exploration Place. They're our key partners on this, and they have groups of kids coming through all the time, and they're going to be using this as their, well, the proper environment, outdoor environment. Some people there are just so completely enthusiastic about the entire project.
Yeah.
You know, to have this in their back garden,
exactly.
It's magic.
And it's almost like it's a treasure that's there, but people haven't really known.
What we're standing in here is the McMillan Creek Watershed. It runs from the north all the way down to the Nechako River. It's a spawning ground for Chinook salmon, and we've recently had to stop some flow into the McMillan Creek because there's been some pollutant factors, and so we've been monitoring this site for the last 2 months, and we've had some kill of Chinook salmon because of leachate and pollution that is being run into the creek itself. So what we'd like to see here, once again, we need some more shade in this area, and we need some more riparian plants to encompass some better stream habitat for aquatic insects, and also to provide shade for the Chinook salmon as they make their way to the Nechako River. There's also some pylons here and some old creosote logs from a bridge path that needs to be removed. There's some rebar and some cement that needs to be removed as well, just to give it a better flow for the invertebrates and for the salmon.
Salmon circle from the sea to the sea, up the rivers of life, endlessly. They always return to the place they began for 1,000,000 years. They swam and swam and swam. They swam and swam and swam. They swam and swam and swam.
Hi there, I'm Tracy Executive Director of Baker Creek Enhancement Society, and we're here along the beautiful Baker Creek, which is our namesake. Our society started work here about 20 years ago, and we actually started work doing cleanup of, we took out 60 loads of 60 loads of metal, 60 dump truck loads of metal, and 75 loads of asphalt out of this lower reach of Baker Creek.
So last year we did 2 different creek cleanups, basically along the edge of Baker Creek. There's a whole trail system that was built years ago. So what we do is we come in with a high-ab truck, so it's a crane truck, and he comes in on the trail. We stay out of the riparian area. He'll send his boom out over the creek, drop his winch down. We'll be in the creek hooking him up to pieces of metal and debris. Then he lifts them up, swings them around, and we put them into a dump truck and then haul it to the city landfill. Flat pieces of concrete don't really provide fish with fish habitat, and if it's on top of spawning gravels, then it's actually eliminated that opportunity for fish to spawn there. When we're pulling out old car bodies and that, there's quite often, you know, the axles might be still full of grease, probably are full of hydraulic oils. So we're actually taking the contaminants out, which in the long term will affect fish and fish habitat, but also people. With the children, lots of kids swim in this river, so to have sharp pieces of steel in there is actually a pretty significant risk for swimmers. So we've got kid habitat.
Kid habitat. It is kid habitat.
It is
great kid habitat.
Lots of us grew up in stream beds.
We've got right in behind us here is the Quesnel River, and just below us, just downstream, is the Fraser River. So it's a confluence of the Quesnel and the Fraser. You'll see in the distance there's a culvert, and at that culvert is actually the bottom end of Dragon Creek, which is a very special creek to us because it flows through a park where our Nature Education and Resource Center is.
That's the first of several barriers to fish passage. So currently fish can actually get into the creek during extreme high flows when that culvert's underwater and it's backwatered all the way up to the top end of that pipe. So we're looking at possibly daylighting it, so we just leave the culvert in place, but we divert the creek and build a new stream channel that'll actually just come out just downstream from that existing pipe, and so that way then there'll be open access for fish.
Because that would be easier than digging up the culvert.
Yeah. We've been working with the DFO engineering team and they've been providing us with engineering support to help design a new channel that will be fish friendly. So if we can get the fish through this first through this first barrier, then we've opened up kilometers of new habitat, and then we go upstream and there are more barriers upstream, but it's one barrier at a time. So we're looking at the inlet to that culvert that we were spotted from the other side of the river. So this is Dragon Creek here. Currently the stream bed is dry. That's because there's a control structure at the top end of this, at the outlet of the lake. We would actually like to put in a weir structure that so the elevation of the lake will be set and predetermined, and that way we won't let a bunch of water go in the spring and then block it off for the summer to keep the lake level at a certain level. So if we can just have a rock weir at the outlet, then we eliminate a structure that has to be open and closed. If they determine a certain level for the lake, then we'll be able to maintain flow through Dragon Creek all year long.
Right.
So right now, actually, when it is actually cut off like this, if we go upstream, we might find rainbow trout this big in a pool this big. So we want to fix that problem. Yeah, so what we're looking at doing here is basically bringing the creek out and along the toe of that slope. So we just follow the natural contour of the slope there and gently turn around the corner. We put in an open bottom structure under the roadway, and then build a channel down to the Quesnel River.
This wetland here, we use this site, the wetland, as well as Dragon Creek for our school programming, and probably our most popular programming, and which I'd mentioned before. We have about 4,000 kids, participants that join us at the Nature Education and Resource Center, and this is our pathway we use. We bring them in through here. We do pond dipping. They pull out, they look at, you know, what kind of invertebrates are in here. We talk about wetland and watershed health. The project that we're looking to do here for Habitat Conservation Trust Fund as a possibility is this trail. As you see, this is a just sort of a gravel berm. It goes up and it goes around, sort of in a horseshoe shape around the wetland. You can see the trail that goes down there. So we, like I said, we use the kids, we take the kids, you know, sort of all the way around, but there is actually a gravel berm that goes all the way around so that this could become a loop tour. And but it isn't accessible. It's just been grown over right now. So what we want to be able to do is to be able to take this pathway and turn it into a circle tool and turn this whole area into a sort of wetland watershed interpretive site that will then sort of follow in with the themes that we're working on with over by the site at the Quesnel River and the bridge over the river. I mean, it's just got the great connectivity from the sort of upper wetland area down to the Quesnel River and then onto the Fraser River.
We're calling all people with a heart. This is a good place to start. Well, there's a party with a purpose going on. Up your watershed. Up your watershed. Woo! Up your watershed. Yeah, yeah. Up your watershed.
This is Williams Lake Creek. It flows out of the Williams Lake itself and flows for 14 kilometers to the Fraser River. Up until about 2000, the year 2000, all of the stormwater from the streets of the town of Williams Lake flowed directly into the creek. So the city was able to get some funding to build some settling ponds. And there were engineers then created a design for 5 different phases to deal with these 11 outfalls of the storm drain systems. All of that water then is held in the ponds, and then it seeps back into the creek, so it actually purifies or cleans up the water, and then the cattails and bulrushes in the ponds also take up some of the heavy metals. A kilometer or so section of the valley where there's not much in the way of conifer vegetation. To get survival, we found that we need to take seedlings and grow them at Scout Island, which is right up the valley here. It's the same climate. If we grow them there for a year or two in 1 and 2 gallon pots, we can get those seedlings acclimatized and get root systems well developed. And then when we plant them, we can get a better opportunities for survival. And growing the seedlings at Scout Island, developing root systems, and then carefully selecting spots to plant where there is some shade, like even behind the logs that we drove by, behind and underneath shrubs, or in shady locations, or in locations that have where there's a little bit of a depression, where moisture is more likely to be held in the soil.
The thing about this Up Your Watershed performance, almost 250 children brought their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, who work in all sorts of different fields, mining, forestry, things, people that we don't normally get out to, maybe a conservation watershed type film, were coming out and getting this message, which they were getting it in 3D with enthusiasm, and the crowd was radiating by the end, you know? So I just can't say enough about this face-to-face, creative way of protecting our watersheds.
On the banks of a rushing river, climbing over logs.
We're at the Upper Seton off-channel habitat, locally known as the Upper Spawning Channel. And this is an area that was pretty heavily disturbed just from the construction of the spawning channels. It was heavily compact, lots of knapweed, weedy site. Not a lot of native vegetation growing here. Not a lot of riparian habitat value. What we've done this year is using a technique called rough and loose, is really decompacted the soils, created lots of micro topography. It looks, it looks pretty ugly right now, but from an ecological point of view and from thinking about plants and where they like to grow and microsites, it's a perfect situation that's going to maximize the possibilities of the plants succeeding and growing. The Upper Spawning Channel is a site that has runs of pink salmon, coho salmon, the odd chinook and steelhead. There's rainbow trout and bull trout that utilize the channels. There's suckers and whitefish. There's quite a diversity of fish species in the spawning channels. We've seen evidence of Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, mule deer, black bears, you name it. Although there's a lot of development in this area, there's a lot of wildlife that use this area as well. That's what we're trying to do, is enhance the riparian values, create some shade on the Upper Spawning Channel, create some usable wildlife habitat in an area that was, for all intents and purposes, just a sort of a wasteland. We'll plant everything from trees that are growing in the area, which is ponderosa pine and Douglas fir, to Canada goldenrod. There's spike-like goldenrod. There's mock orange. There's cottonwoods that are doing pretty well. Red osier dogwood. It's another dogwood. And then we've got weeds. So part of our management here is watering and weeding until these plants really get established and take hold. We're just coming up to the edge of an area that hasn't been treated, and we're looking, it looks, it could look pretty in a way, but it's all alfalfa. It's diffuse knapweed, which is a provincial noxious weed. The ground is fairly compact, and there's just, that's all you're seeing growing around the spawning channel, except for that one sagebrush there. It's all weeds, and there's very little native plant species in there, growing in there. It's cheatgrass, mustard, alfalfa. It's all weedy kind of area that could really benefit from having more native trees and shrub species planted down by the banks of the channels. And the upland zone as well could be forested. We're right on the upper edge of the riparian zone of the Seton River, and it's filled with Saskatoon berries. There's black hawthorn, there's some Douglas fir and the native rose. And a lot of these species could be planted into this site. What's holding it back is the weeds and the compaction of the soil in our very hot, dry climate.
Odin, we're here at the confluence of the Seton, Cayush rivers where they meet the Fraser, and there's a potential project here that you thought could be presented to Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation. Can you describe it?
We're right down in the bottom of the, like you say, we're at the confluence with the Fraser River. It's a very rich area. We just walked here and stepped over about 14 black bear droppings piles. Yeah. So even though we're right next to the town of Lillooet, we are in a very wildlife rich zone. There's osprey, there's herons, there are 5 species of salmon that use the river systems here. We've got the sockeye run that runs up the gates. We've got pink salmon. There's the chinook, etc. And there's been although there's high wildlife values, we are right next to the town, and there is a lot of industrial development and clearing that has gone on along the lower Seton River, and consequently a lot of the riparian zones of the Seton River itself are riprap rock and denuded of vegetation. So one of the projects we would really like to see happen is more revegetating all along the Seton River itself. it is a relatively short stretch of river, and to maximize the amount of riparian cover with cottonwoods and willows and dogwoods would really benefit the water quality in this area.
Right.
This was the first enhancement project we did on the wetlands. After we bought it, it's 112 acres of wetlands. Goes all the way from the top of the escarpment all the way around. A few little pieces of private property here or there. This initially was a farm field. Right. And the farm field devastated the native habitat.
Yeah.
Because what happened is the dike retained the water, and so we had standing water year round, and with the standing water we had largemouth bass and pumpkin seed sunfish and black crappie and other things that don't belong here. And so along with many other types of plants and so on. So over the years what we shifted as our ownership is to naturalize it to an estuary wetland.
Wow, amazing.
So it now is very dry as we walk further. You'll see. It's a mud flat, and that's what we want. We have all sorts of people phoning us. Say, do you know there's no water in the wetlands? So we say, yes.
It's a mudland.
In August and September it is. It's mud flats, and we like it that way because all the herons help us clear out all the bullfrogs.
Right. Watershed Coalition would like to see a planting project happen to establish cottonwood groves and plants that are going to outgrow the canary grass.
Perfect.
Because it's been all taken over by canary grass, which, as beautiful as it is not the right thing. And so this is one of the projects that they're going to propose to HCTF.
So this is a really important habitat because it's tidally influenced. It's a staging area for your juvenile salmon, like your coho and your chum, because what they're doing is they're nosing up as high as they can get into a watershed, and they're trying to get the appropriate amount of aquatic bugs. They have to get a certain size before they can make their trek out to the Fraser River and then obviously out to the Salish Sea. So these habitats are really crucial to make them both form and the proper function. And the connectivity between rearing and overwintering habitats like the Silverdale wetlands, where in overwintering times the water comes up, they've got an appropriate amount of cool water, enough oxygen to support themselves, grow, and then make their way out. And it's creating these connectivity channels to support not just the salmon but the biodiversity that you'll see here.
Right.
One of the things that we want to do is develop a program where we've got people that can come and show moms and tots, retired people, homeschool kids, afternoon programs, summer programs, the value and importance of nature. So the idea is that we'd have workshops. We want to do maybe start it really small, but the idea is to get people out understanding nature, understanding what tidal estuaries are all about, understanding salmon, understanding aquatic bugs, and putting a face to nature. So whether that is the beavers that happen to live here, or it's the great blue herons, or the amphibians, or the bats, or the connection between forested uplands to these lowlands and the relationship to large rivers that flow out to the sea. It's building that and building a kind of a hub for the community.
Right.
And so it is connecting arts and culture into it as well.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
So what specifically would you like to see happen here at Silverdale Wetlands?
We want to, so what happens here already is there's a nature club. It's not our program, but they'll come here and use it for events, and then we'll help them and kind of give them interpretive walks. So interpretive walks, interpretive workshops,
right.
To help professionals learn how to do bioengineering, and that would be a part of the habitat enhancement side of things,
yeah.
Giving them the tools to understand how to restore these areas. And then the more fun hands-on learning through play, letting people collect aquatic bugs, learning how to do DNet sampling.
Right.
It varies. I'd like to see, I think we were originally planning maybe 2 per month so that we have low impact on the wetland,
yeah.
That a presence here too, and it will slowly grow on itself.
You're looking at our most recent habitat efforts. Pacific Salmon Foundation sponsored it. What we did is behind this berm there is an outflow creek, and the problem is the canary grass kept crowding out the creek, and it was bad enough that when you had a summer growth of canary grass and it flooded again in the fall, the stalks and stems were thick enough to impede salmon passage. And the way we got around that is me to take 2 days and go through with a weed eater and cut them all out, but I don't want to do that 30 years from now. So the plan was to put plants in that will shade the canary grass out, and So we built up a berm because it's hard to get shade on areas that right now we would be standing in freshet and knee-deep water. So a lot of our shade-providing plants won't grow here. So what we did is we built up a berm. It starts next to the creek with willow that were buried, actually live stakes, that we buried a good 6 feet of willow stake under the dirt, which has worked out extremely well. They're probably one of the healthiest willow plantings I've seen. And then along here we've planted a succession of from wet to dry plants. There's also 3 snake hibernacula in there. We're looking at one right now where it's a size of a pickup truck full of very, very large boulders just under the ground with the southern exposure for heat, so the snakes can overwinter there. And so we've tried to diversify as much as we can, multiple species and so on. And we had really good help from the community. This was, we kept costs down a long way by bringing fill in, which is a very unusual thing for wetlands restoration. But we ended up bringing, so you have here the byproduct of Mission Cemetery and a few other places where there was fill that they needed to get rid of, nice clean fill. And we built it up and have planted it. So it should be a whole bunch of shade for that creek and should make exit and entrance into the system a little easier.
Here we are by the Stave River. The construction of the Ruskin Dam on the lower Stave River permanently alienated over 90% of the historic habitats available to coho salmon in this watershed. There are limited areas remaining on the lower Stave River floodplain that support significant populations of coho salmon adults and juveniles, and this includes the lower 3-kilometer section of the Stave River. This section provides the only remaining habitat for anadromous salmon within the Stave River watershed. This section of the river consists of numerous channels and gravel bars. Up to 500,000 chum salmon and hundreds of coho and chinook salmon spawn in these graveled channels. In an attempt to increase viable salmon populations in this lower reach, habitat improvements for spawning, rearing, and overwintering are critical for both anadromous and resident salmon species. There are significant opportunities for habitat creation and enhancement on the river left bank between Stave River and Silvermere Lake, and south of Lougheed Highway, left bank of Stave River. This is a unique area both in a cultural sense and in a natural sense. It is tidally influenced in conjunction with the Fraser River freshet and tides, and supports a multitude of species including aquatic invertebrates, salmon, amphibians, reptiles, large and small mammals, raptors, and waterfowl. The habitat is also unique in its direct link to forested uplands and unrestricted link to the Stave River and Fraser River. On Silvermere Island, owned by Kwantlen First Nations, IR3, an old side channel on the east bank of the Stave River floodplain is wetted only during high flows and freshet conditions and is predominantly vegetated by the invasive reed canary grass. This area provides an excellent opportunity to expand off-channel habitats for juvenile coho, chum, and chinook. Deep, quiet sections of off-channel habitat will be created in conjunction with shallow sedge benches and areas of large wood for complexity. Higher elevation areas will be created with the spoil to improve survival of tree species for perching and nesting birds, and allow for the placement of snags and downed wood as refuges for small mammals, amphibians, and reptiles during the seasonal inundation during the annual Fraser River freshet. Do you think like a lookout, is that something you might want to put forward to HCTF?
That was always my my plan.
Right.
Greg, if we could do that, that would be fabulous. Then at least people can come and there can be signage,
Yeah.
speaking about the river. No different to the way we have it on the Fraser River,
Yeah.
by the Fraser Discovery Center, or in Queensborough at some other locations, right? So if we can get a proper sign that's easily repaired if it were to get damaged, and but that's what I would really, I mean, just the beauty of looking down here is, it gives you just a totally different feeling, and people really love this area. They feel feels more like a natural area, right in our little city, right in the middle.
I'm assuming another addition could be just even invasive removal in this area, like around the Lookout Point and doing native planting. I'm not sure if that's already being done. Even creating like a rain garden around that storm drain to also further educate people about watersheds and how we can help them. And when you have a rain garden in the park, they'll see it and maybe they'll be encouraged to make it on their own residence or things like that. So like it's not just a lookout, but everything around it is also fully restored. It'll be a really great project.
That's kind of what's just brainstormed here is a lookout, a rain garden, some actual restoration activity connected to giving people access to the river and learning more about it.
Right.
I think that sounds like a great project. So would there be an opportunity here for like your evergreen programs where you've got children or students involved in either invasive weed control or plantings or maintenance that could be directly connected to this?
Definitely. We're here once a month regardless of this funding, so we can always bring people in to maintain what we do through this project, or even have a special event for this project and have people plant and bring a school in or whatever.
So you bring kids down here once a month?
They're public events.
Right.
There's a mixture of adults and kids. We get all ages. Some of the younger ones are 4 and 5, and they know the most information. They come here every single time and answer all my questions. So yeah, they're really smart. So definitely we have kids here all the time working. It's open to anybody and everybody.
And it's well advertised through Evergreen and through the city.
Right.
Each time, and all of our city media avenues.
And there's a lot of local residents who come out every time and they really care about the park. Sometimes they come out on their own just to like check on the water and see how our plantings are doing. Like they're really passionate about the park.
All of this would then be restated with soil, topsoil, proper soils, and then you're ridding of the invasive species and replanting this whole thing. So we want this to be completely thick, right? And then have the areas to be able to go out to and see. So that way you have that full buffer for the river. That's absolutely. See the canes?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You can see them all through.
That's a lot of knotweed.
Oh, it's terrible, and it's just full through.
That's massive.
This area was completely planted by the volunteers with evergreen, the cedars, and then you can see the works that Metrovent has done in the river with these logs that are all tied in.